Garropy is here. I've not been very good about scheduling out content on my streams on Friday. I had scheduled them out at a certain point, like months out, and then got caught up and just have been lazy. So I asked Brad if he would come on to join me, and we enjoy hanging out and talking about this stuff. We work on sharing ideas and stuff, and I wanted to get his perspective, and I think lots of people will have questions about it too. What it's been like just working on a side project, because you spend a lot of time working on this Murph tracker, and you are doing like 9 p.m. stream, 10 p.m. stream. Like I never catch them because I'm in bed at like 8, but like you're doing all this really cool work outside of your regular work hours, and I wanted to get your perspective to just kind of talk about that stuff. Yeah, uh he is muted. Oh no. I think yeah, because okay, so I didn't realize this is how that works. So talk for a second. We'll get these.
Hey, check, check.
That's a little bit too loud to keep talking.
Check, check, 1, 2,
A little
Brett.
bit
Oh
too
yeah, I
loud.
hear myself on stream now.
All right. So the reason is I didn't realize this happened in Streamlabs is on the main scene. So I have like one um desktop or like audio coming from the computer. So like basically whatever I hear in my headphones is what you will hear in the stream, except I muted that on the waiting screen so that they wouldn't hear you talking while they were waiting. They would not hear anything because I usually have it turned on so you can hear background music. But with a guest, I turned it off. I didn't realize if you do that in one scene, it does it in all the scenes. I didn't know that. So anyway,
There's a fix for that. I'll
okay.
coach you on that later. Yeah.
This is like, I mean, people who have watched any of these things know that like streaming is a learning process, and you got to like learn from each other and figure out what the hell you're doing for a long time.
Yeah. Yeah, so you were kind of talking about how I do a lot of late night streams. I do a lot of side project work. Um, it's just one of those things where I think you have to put in time outside of the workday in order to get better at this stuff. Otherwise, I just don't think you're ever really going to have enough time to learn. And plus, it's something I really enjoy doing. I'm
Yep.
kind of breaking into the point in my career where I feel like I can make whatever I want, you
Yep.
know? So it starts opening up possibilities.
That's one of the like game changing moments. So I've talked about this a lot. Just like being a developer, eventually you kind of transform your mindset and you stop being just a consumer. So like consumers, like they download applications, they go to websites, they use them. When you change the mindset into like becoming a producer and a creator, you look at those things that other people create and you look at ideas that you have and you feel super empowered because those are the things that you can then build yourself, which is exactly why you did this one.
Yeah. Yeah. And a little background on Murph in general. Like, uh, it's a CrossFit workout that's usually done on Memorial Day. It's a workout that kind of honors a fallen soldier with the last name of Murphy. Um, and my buddy challenged me to this, like, do a half of a Murph every day for a week. And it was
Oh.
definitely really tough. But I found out that I wanted to track my times and see if I got any better over the course of the week. And I definitely did. But it was really difficult to keep everything straight in my head. So I was like,
Yep.
I should build an app for this.
Yeah, those are the best use cases. Like people ask all the time, or like the recommendation that we give to get better at programming and to learn more is build something. And then the people in general are like, well, I don't know what to build. Well, it's just like something random in your day that would be helpful for you. So I've been thinking about doing a scorekeeper for disc golf. And so like I could keep my score, I could
Nice.
save historical ones, I could compare like how I did this time versus a previous time and that kind of stuff. So I thought that would be really cool. Arpan commented saying video is much better than the rest of the streams. He's a fan of the Discord stuff. So this is working really well, I think, so far. It looks good. The only problem, and I mentioned this earlier, is I'm recording you from like I'm recording that entire monitor and then just grabbing you because if I grabbed a window, it was really not performant, which was really odd. It was really delayed. So that means I can't do anything like have the chat open on this other monitor. I have to look down. So excuse me if you see me looking down a lot.
Yeah, we got to get that figured out. I'm
Yeah.
sure there's a way around it.
I mean, there's a million different things. And like for people out there, if you're curious, like I could put Brad down on this monitor and have the chat up here, but I also want to see Brad like when I'm talking to him. And ideally, it would be like right at the camera, but it's not. So anyway, these are like the first world problems that people are trying to figure out.
Sounds
Yeah.
like sounds
Sorry, go
like
ahead.
Tech has
Yeah.
sounds like Tech has a side project, and he's been sharing it in the Discord a lot. He's really taking bookmarks to like a new level, with tagging and sorting. It sounds like a good personal use case for a side project just to build something.
Yeah. And Tech Gadget, were you asking, was it you that asked the question in Airtable of like, how do you query what the multiple choice options are if you have a multi select in Airtable? I think that might have been you that was asking about that. But if you have a link to the project or anything, share that and let me know. Saying you can't. Yeah, I think you'd have to create another table and then just query that table for all the options, which is not ideal. But anyway, so be thinking, people in the chat, be thinking, what kind of questions do you have for people that work on side projects? Time wise, how is it difficult? Brad has a family, so if you want to know like how he balances that sort of stuff with family, I think that would be a good thing to talk about. But maybe one of the things that I'm most excited about, and Brad, I think you are too, is the technologies that you decided to use for this. And the reason was you just dove in, right? You were just like, I want to learn all this new cool shit that people are talking about, and I'm just going to use it. And do you want to break down like a little bit of the technologies and why you're interested in how that's gone so far?
Yeah, for sure. So I kind of said earlier that the main reason for side projects is to like help yourself learn or solve a personal problem, and you can do both at the same time. And so when I started to think about building Murph, I said, let's use this as a learning opportunity. Initially, Murph was not going to be like a paid app that was going to go on an app store and all this stuff. It was just going to be this little toy proof of concept that I could play with to learn some new bits of tech. So what I decided to do was I have had some Vue experience in the past. I'm really, really big on React, but I've never touched Svelte. And I this project initially was going to be like a smaller scope, so I said I'm going to use Svelte starting out. Uh, and then another goal for this project of mine was I really wanted to get over like this hurdle that I had in web development. Authenticating a user and saving user specific data to a database has always been a pain point for me. And let's be honest, it still kind of is. I found out that it's just not easy to do through this project, but
Yeah.
I've overcome that, and I decided to go with Netlify Identity for an authentication solution and saving the data in FaunaDB, which is very Jamstack and serverless friendly.
Yep.
Uh, and then CSS wise, I'm very comfortable in vanilla CSS, but there's a lot of buzz about Tailwind, so I decided to try that too. And I have thoughts about all these different technologies that I used. And Stripe to actually process payments. So
So
I
that's
have good and bad experiences with everything
with
that I wound
individual.
up
Yeah.
using.
The
Yeah.
Stripe part is really interesting. I need to force myself, like learn with jason.com or .dev
Hmm.
has, you
Yeah.
can buy stickers and stuff, and he does that through Stripe. And I want to do some stuff like that just for like integrating, just for the practice of integrating Stripe. And I want to come up with like some cool branded assets and things that could be emotes and stickers and stuff like he does. Um, my video just went like it looked like it went a different color for a second. Did you see
I saw that.
Arpan's? Yeah, did you? Arpan's comment about how you were complaining about Tailwind for a while and then you ended up loving it. You want to talk about
It's
like what that was like?
okay. I've mixed feelings about Tailwind still to this day. Let me tell you this though. Tailwind pairs incredibly well with Svelte. So when you're writing Tailwind, you're mostly focused on your HTML file because Tailwind is precompiled CSS classes. So all you're doing is adding classes to HTML elements in order to style them. So because you're so focused on the HTML, it works well in like front end frameworks like Vue and Svelte that are template driven, directive driven, rather than React, which is all like declarative rendering. You have a render function, you're writing JavaScript. It doesn't work, not to say it doesn't work well, it works exactly fine in React, but it just seems to pair more nicely with Vue and Svelte that are all template driven. And what I mean by template driven is like how you bind inputs to variables, how you conditionally render like a div or not if somebody's logged in or not logged in. That's all handled in markup in Vue and Svelte. So because the focus is on the HTML and the markup, Tailwind is a natural fit for those frameworks.
Okay. So when you mention like it being in markup, like we're talking more like a templating engine, like EJS or Pug or something like that's what you mean?
Yeah, kind of. So the way Svelte and Vue work is like if you want to conditionally render something, okay, I'll compare this to React because we're all familiar with React. If you were going to conditionally render something in React, you'd have to write like a ternary statement to
Hmm.
determine if you're going to return like, option A or option B, or
Yep.
like the double ampersand to just not render something if you don't want it to be there.
Yep.
Instead, in Svelte and Vue, you use these things called directives,
The little template tag things or the
which
yeah.
feels a lot like EJS or
Yeah.
Pug, like you were saying. Exactly. So the focus seems to be just more on the markup, and because of that, Tailwind works really well. It's a natural fit.
Okay. Like I didn't have this epiphany until later on, but if you look at React, basically what you're doing is you're doing like ES6 template literal strings. Because when you do your JavaScript, like when you do a map or a conditional or something like that, you're writing JavaScript, right? Which is the same thing as if you had like ES6 template literal strings and then you just like wrote JavaScript inside of like a interpolated variable or whatever. I don't know if that makes sense to
Yeah.
other people, but when I do some of my just like vanilla HTML, CSS, and JavaScript demos, I'll like instead of creating DOM elements in JavaScript, I'll like generate an HTML string and it looks very similar to React because it's ES6. And then I just inject variables and I can do any sort of like manipulation inside of that with JavaScript that I need to.
Yeah, true. Yeah. I mean, imagine if it's running as, I think they're called tag template literals,
Yeah.
like a styled
Yeah.
component. Imagine if
Yep.
it's just that under the hood or something.
I mean it's really not much different. It's pretty much the same. Um IndieXDev Nick is using Tailwind with Vue and it's awesome. IndieXDev, is that what you're using for your portfolio? Is it Vue and Tailwind? And did you go? I can't remember. Did you go with like a Nuxt or Gritsum or just regular Vue? Um, we had several different conversations about like React and Next and Gatsby yesterday and some of the benefits and stuff there. Um, IndieXDev is using Nuxt and Tailwind Insanity Suite.
Yeah,
Um,
that's going to be a very flexible platform. You'll be able to do a lot with that stack.
That is, yeah. And I still have in my backlog to migrate my personal site over to something. Tailwind or styled
Hmm.
components probably is what I would do, or a combination. Like you could do your styled components that, well, not not quite. Well, no, I think you can actually. You can do like your imports
You
or something.
you could.
We
Wait,
don't
can
we
you
don't
can
sound
you apply a
confident that
class?
we
Yeah, I
don't
don't
sound
know.
confident that it's a good thing to do. Maybe you can, but I don't think either one of us know. Tech Gadget is saying you can, so yeah, maybe it's a thing. Data Brecht, is that how you would pronounce that? Let me know. But Data is here, who is, and I didn't know this, is a developer advocate at Fauna. Awesome. I didn't realize that or hadn't made that association in the past. Data Brecht, do you have your Twitter handle if you want to, or link to Twitter? Throw it in the chat if you do. I want to make sure I'm following you if I'm not already. But since you're here on behalf of Fauna, Brad, you're using Fauna as your backend for this. Again, kind of
Yeah.
your entry point into really building a full stack authenticated application. How has Fauna been? And any learnings or anything cool or anything that kind of sticks out with that?
Yeah, so I have nothing but good things to say about Fauna. It was incredibly easy to set up. With the asterisk of if you're familiar with GraphQL, Fauna is very, very easy. So the way it works is think about as an input to Fauna, the service, you give it a GraphQL schema. So you say type user is equal to a name field that's a string, an email that's a string, and then maybe you'll say like I'm doing workouts, right? So type workout is equal to like a list of exercises or something, and you give that to Fauna as an input, and for you they create a GraphQL API and all the resolvers to do CRUD operations on the types that you defined. So like you do no work beyond saying this is the form of my data, and they
Yeah.
hand you an entire backend,
Is that
and on an incredibly generous free tier.
yes. Yeah, That's the cool thing about just like web dev right now. So many awesome tools that have free tiers and you can just build stuff and love it. Is your is that file, the GraphQL schema, is that checked in into your repo?
It is. Yeah, it is.
Which
Go to source GraphQL schema.gql.
okay, I mean I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen as well, so we can all see this together because I want to show you what he's talking about specifically. So inside of GraphQL, and Brad, do you want to throw a link to the source code? That
Yeah,
way
yeah,
people
for
can have that
sure.
as well. And I missed this. We just got a raid from F Bucheros. Let me know if I'm even close to that. What is going on? Thanks for coming to hang out. Thanks for bringing some people. How
Welcome.
how was your stream? What were you streaming about? Welcome everybody. Super excited to have you. Um, just really quickly, a little bit about what we're doing is I've got Brad Garropy on, who we've become pretty good friends just online. We've never met in person, but just talking about projects and things that we work on, streaming together. And he has recently been working on a Murphy tracker, which is a workout in CrossFit, and has used some really badass technologies to build it. And let me see if I can run through this again. So FaunaDB is what we've just started talking about. Tailwind CSS, Svelte as the framework, Stripe for payments, Netlify functions for hosting and serverless functions. Is that all the big buzzwords we got going on?
Netlify identity for auth
Netlify
was the
identity for
last
auth.
piece.
Yes, very cool. And well, F, whatever I said your last name was, or the last part of your name, Frank. I will call you Frank from now on. Thanks again for coming. So that's what we're talking about. If you have questions about any of the technologies that we just mentioned, how they fit together, what it's like to spend time outside of work working on a personal project, how do you stay motivated, how do you balance that with your family time, any of those questions, throw those in the chat. That's kind of what we're talking about. And what I was going to pull up is the schema GQL is what you were saying.
Yeah.
And so this is all you did to you literally like take this file, upload it to Fauna, and
Yeah.
Fauna says, "All right, I got you. Sit back, relax. Let me do this whole like GraphQL layer, and let me take care of all this stuff for you." And that's basically it.
I mean, it was like almost no load time. Uh, you upload this file and you're sitting in front of a GraphQL playground with everything inside of it. Like it's ready to go. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I'm gonna pull open mine, and I'll show you. I'll throw a self promotional link for myself in here. Also, I guess that's redundant. Self promotional for myself. Um, I will throw a link in here in a second to what I'm going to show you, but just an idea of what that looks like is inside of my list of links. This is a crash course a Jamstack crash course that I did. I uploaded a very similar file to what we just showed from Brad. And then in GraphQL, I get the ability to come in with this playground and I can do whatever I want in here. How does it start off with query like this? And then where's my IntelliSense? There we go. So I get IntelliSense for like, here's all the different ways that I can query. If I do that, then I can, it gives me IntelliSense for like, what information do I want to get back? So if you've never used GraphQL or especially like a playground, this thing's freaking awesome. All that stuff's taken care of. It sounds like your experience with Fauna was like pretty close to what mine was, which is pretty sweet.
Yeah. And like even better is that everybody who uses Fauna uses the same GraphQL endpoint. So there's no like weird endpoint with like a bunch of hashed
Yeah.
stuff inside of it. All the information that Fauna needs from you comes from your secret key. If there was
It's,
any tripping point in Fauna, it was that there's two different keys. One is to access like your databases, and one is to like manage your Fauna instance. And I didn't understand which one to use at the beginning.
yeah.
Got over that pretty quickly.
I
But
had the
yeah,
same
so
learning
like
here. Netlify. Sorry
yeah,
about that. I think you could hear that. Yeah, I had the same learning, so I had to figure that out too. But other than that, it was pretty sweet. Here's my promotional link. This is a Jamstack crash course. Maybe Databricks will appreciate this, using basically what Brad just says, where you upload a GraphQL schema to Fauna, it generates all that stuff for you, then you just interact with it by sending it GraphQL. It's pretty sweet. Also, I have talked about this before. I was really proud of this. I created a Chrome extension. I've got a video on this as well. But a Chrome extension to like show myself my recent YouTube links. It just didn't go back far enough to get that video. And so like anytime I want to share a video, I can just come here and then copy the URL to that YouTube video and throw it in there. So actually, if you want the URL
Somebody
too,
somebody needs to PR adding thumbnails to this so it's easier to
to
know what
see
they
what,
are.
yeah, yeah, I
Yeah.
would love to. This is public on my GitHub, James Q Quick. So if anybody's interested, feel free. That'd be great. I'd love to have some PRs, and I might go ahead and do that later on too.
And I can vouch for that Jamstack crash course video. I watched it in prep to like
Yeah,
get this FaunaDB up and running, and it definitely gave me like an understanding of what's required.
sweet, awesome. Um, all right. Any questions? Like we said, technology wise, or just like work life balance, or anything like that. Which one? One of the things that I'm depending on questions coming in, I want to hear about the Stripe integration because that's one of the coolest things for me, and that's something that I want to like. I need to find something that I can sell just to go through the practice of like actually setting it up.
Yeah.
So
So, okay, I'll talk about Stripe a little bit. Like using Stripe in and of itself is just as simple as Fauna. You install a Stripe library and you essentially call one method, redirect to checkout. And that's using Stripe's hosted checkout. They kind of like Auth0's login process or
does
Netlify
it
Identity's login process. It'll
does
like,
it redirects you over to?
yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
so the URL actually changes to be, and then you register a callback for when that process finishes. It sends them back to your site.
exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. But it's really easy because you can use Stripe again, all for free. To I should say this entire app was built for free, right? My goal was like I'm cheap. I don't pay for anything. So Stripe, you
I
can
think
create an
I think you'll
account.
make a lot of friends, or find a lot of similarities between at least myself and then maybe other people in the chat too.
So like on Stripe, you can make an account and then you can define products directly inside of Stripe. So for instance, in this Murph application, the only product I'm selling is like a pro
Account, I
plan
guess.
where
Yeah.
like on a single, it's a single payment, a one-time payment, and you can purchase that pro plan. And then when you have redirect to checkout, you install the Stripe.js library in your front end. You use your public key, and then you tell it the ID of the item that the person's buying. That's pretty much it. And then the callback on where you want to go. So like what happens on success, what happens on cancel. Um, very simple. You can actually see that in the code base. I'll have to remember where I put it.
Yeah, I'll pull that up. And I just let's switch back over to showing. I need to set up my buttons on my stream deck. I just haven't done it yet. Databrect. I made it in the awesome FaunaDB README here. This Jamstack crash course. And Brad, I would assume you're gonna have some content to talk about, like on YouTube, to show the different things that you created. If not, I'm putting you on the spot and saying it would be awesome content, and you should.
Yes.
And then let
There's
Databrect
so
know so you can
much
get in here.
there's so much I need to make
Yeah.
regarding all of this, all the tech I used, the whole experience.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's so much. What's up, Narendev? I think you're talking to like the newer people in the stream, but what is up to you anyway? Because I think you've been here for a while. Do you know where I'm looking in here in the
Yeah, so
source
you'll
code?
be source pages account page dot svelte.
Count page svelte.
So you'll look at a function called on pro.
Okay.
So this is just a click handler for a button that says go pro. That's how you do Stripe. That's it.
So
That's the whole thing.
what is this PK test thing? Is that just like a client identifier?
That's a hard coded public key.
Public
it is
key. Okay.
public, so it's fine. But that should be put into like an environment variable or something.
Okay. So I wonder if it's just used as an identifier of some sort. One of the things that I thought was weird in Stripe documentation, because I went through Jason Langsdorff, his tutorial on Stripe subscriptions and stuff, which is super cool. Like he nailed that. But with that, I thought it was super odd that a price, that's the thing that they call basically a product in Stripe. Like I don't expect price. I expect price to be the literal price of a product. Price in this case in Stripe, this is like basically a product ID So it refers to the product. They just call that thing a price. That's odd to me.
It's interesting because you can have different prices. You can have a
Different
like a
prices
early
for
bird.
one product.
Yes. So
Okay.
imagine like you're a conference and you're selling tickets. And anytime a conference sells tickets, they have super early bird tickets, they have early bird tickets,
They
and
have
they have
regular
regular
bird
price tickets.
tickets.
So like you can define those pricing models or like a different kind of like coupon specific prices. And that's kind of how you like would associate. They map to the same product, but a product can have different pricing options. Or
Okay.
think about if you're buying in like bulk versus single, or if your quantities above
Yeah.
25, like stickers, the pricing model changes.
Huh. Okay. Interesting. Um, so what you do in this function is load stripe is basically doing some sort of like it's getting the stripe object, I guess, and you give it your
Yeah.
like kind
Yeah.
of application ID or public key. And then you call the redirect, and this thing redirects out to Stripe, telling it which thing the user is thinking about buying.
Yeah.
And you complete their email, and
So
so
I
it
auto
auto
complete.
populates.
Yeah. So like, yeah, this auto populates the email based on the currently logged in user.
Hmm.
And then this base URL thing, you're saying this is just a build time thing where Svelte uses rollup to build. You can use anything to build
Hmm.
Svelte, but I used rollup, and it just does a basic string replace. It replaces base URL with localhost when I'm running locally, or my actual website URL when I'm building for production.
Huh. So it like rollup will parse all of your code, and anywhere it finds base URL, replace it.
Yeah, if you check at the root of the project, there's a rollup config, and I can
Hmm.
show you kind of how that's done.
Okay.
This is the same thing as Webpack's define plugin.
I don't.
Basically, how
Yeah.
you
I
get
don't.
environment variables into your
Okay.
code.
Yeah. I don't know web. I mean, I don't. I was gonna say I don't know it that well. I don't know like actual Webpack at all. I just know it's taken care of for
Ah,
me.
I
um.
that was another request for content. I think your Discord wants me to make a Webpack tutorial video.
That's what yeah, and Arpan just threw in the chat, will you do a roll up versus Webpack? That would be great. Like
Yeah,
three different ones, roll up, Webpack, and then a comparison. And you could do
yeah.
like a super clickbaity title for the comparison. I don't know, like
I
I don't know. The best processor
I have
or
it.
like bundler for your web apps or something.
I have a nickname for rollup. It's the bundler that does nothing.
Yeah.
Out of the box, it like literally does nothing.
Yeah,
You have to
until
install
you
plugins for everything.
yeah, that's funny. Um
Yeah, data. Data rect. We should talk about what a Murph is. We'll after we wrap up this stripe or rollup section, we'll talk about what it is and maybe look at the app a little bit.
So did I tell you I've done one in the past? A friend of mine was really big into CrossFit several years ago, and I did one, and it
Mhm.
like was terrible. And I don't know that we did the whole thing. I can't remember, but like I can't imagine doing that many pull ups and push ups. It's
So
ridiculous.
the first time I did a Murph, I did it in. First of all, I'm not a CrossFitter.
Okay.
I do like powerlifting and bodybuilding, but
Yeah.
CrossFit, I do Murph every Memorial Day because I think it's just a fun way to celebrate the
Yeah.
holiday, get a sweat on, a different workout.
Yeah.
Um, a Murph is you do a 1 mile run, and then you do 100 pull-ups, 200 push-ups, 300 air squats, and then a mile run
Hmm.
with a 20-pound vest on.
You've never done it with the vest, right?
Never done it with a
Okay.
vest. That's
Yeah.
next level. But I am planning on buying one and starting to train up to that because
Wow.
this is, as I'm getting older, I want to make sure like my cardiovascular system is still working very well.
Yep.
And so I think doing workouts like this help.
Yeah. Absolutely. Um, I think people are kind of like getting overwhelmed with all the numbers of workout things that you just said.
Yeah. Yeah. And data, that's crazy. Yeah, Murph is definitely tough. And
Yeah.
that's super cool that you guys do kickboxing and MMA. That's intense.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to meet a woman or get on a woman's bad side who is a
Who was the
professional MMA
yeah.
fighter.
Yep. Things could go really wrong. TBD Gamer said, just tired thinking about that. I can imagine. Naren Dev says, I'm nowhere going near Murph. I'm not going anywhere near Murph. It's funny.
See, here's the thing though. If you use the app, you can scale the Murph up and down. you can choose to do the run or not. And instead, so the way you do the Murph is you don't do 100 pull-ups in a row and then
Mm-hmm.
200 push-ups in a row. You kind of stagger them. You do 20 rounds of 5 pull-ups, 10 push-ups, and 15 air squats. So that sounds much more doable.
Yeah.
So
And
this application, yeah, like he's showing, like allows you to do that.
this will, like, it keeps them in order, right? So you do the same, so you do your mile run, and let's say it takes me 4 seconds. That sounds about right. Then in this thing, you're starting to go through your cycle. So you're doing your pull-ups,
Yeah.
your push-ups, your squats, and then I changed in my settings. I made it go down to like 15 or something. So I would have to go through this 15 times. And
15 times.
I've seen you like click through this thing so many times in your testing. And then at
You can
the
just
end,
hold enter.
okay. Oh, just hold it down and it'll
Yeah.
go. Cool. And then at the end, you get here, it shows you your time. You can click on your details and it shows you like all of your rounds. So each individual round is like the five, 5 pull-ups, 10 push-ups, 15 squats. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Okay. And that would be a really great workout for me if I just did like 3 of them. Like that would still be
Yeah.
a good workout, I think. Especially
Yeah.
with the like
It's really
two total
nice
miles running.
because what I'd like to do is even be able to, instead of just like have a Boolean for the mileage, scale it up or down, say like, how many miles do you want to run? Like
Yeah.
0.2 or a half or whatever.
Yeah. I would kind of, it'd be kind of cool to do like, even if you kept your run as part of the circuits. Like if you did like a quarter-mile run, like so you did like a lap around the
Oh,
track, and then you did uh 10 pull-ups, 20 push-ups, and 30 squats or something. If I did that 4 times, 5 times, that would be a good workout for me.
yeah, for sure. So if you want to be a guinea pig, we could run you through the going pro process. I'm still on a Stripe test account, so you can use the test credit card and we'll
Okay.
see if it works.
Yeah, actually that'd be cool. I love this.
Yeah,
So just from here, GoPro.
GoPro. Yep. So when you click here, it's running that on pro method that you saw in the
Yep.
code.
So it sends me over, and the like Stripe test card is like 4242 or something.
Yeah, 4-2, just ton of 4-2s.
4242 4242 4242 4242. Is that all of them?
Yep. And
Okay.
then anything in the future for the month and year.
All right. So how about 223?
Anything for CVC, anything for name, anything for zip, doesn't matter.
I need this to stop
And
showing my credit card details every time I fill that in. You can't actually see it, the whole thing, but okay. So that's it. And this, just to, in case people didn't notice, this actually redirected me over to Stripe, which is cool. So now I'm on here and I'll go to pay. And no, don't save that card. Processing. This thing will finish and it will redirect me back to the thanks page. So I imagine like you'll add a little bit more styling
yeah,
here.
yeah.
Um,
And so what this did in the background was
I'm laughing
thanks,
at
great
our
job.
pants. Yeah, our pants comment. Go ahead.
So what happened in the background was I set up a webhook in Stripe that says on a successful payment, call some webhook, which is just a serverless function that I have. And inside of this serverless function, this is where it gets stupidly complicated where it doesn't need to be.
Okay.
Yeah, you can go into,
Payment.
let's see, payment is a serverless function. So
This is the
in
call. This is the
summary,
callback from Stripe.
Stripe, yeah.
Okay.
In summary, what this does is it updates a user in Netlify and gives them a role of pro. You'll see in line 25, I add pro to the user metadata.
So this metadata is stuff that lives on the tokens that Netlify Identity generates for you. So these get attached to all of your requests to your server after you go through the authentication process. I'm working on integration of like their RBAC stuff, which is role-based access, to be able
Cool.
to role-based access control, to be able to use Auth0 JWTs and use their like filtering of routes. But that's kind of a separate story.
Yeah, so like how this works is that anytime a serverless function is executed on Netlify, this context on line 5 has the information about not the user, right? Because this is a webhook from Stripe. There is no associated user. This has
Mhm.
the information about how you reach the admin, the Netlify Identity admin API. So if
Yep.
you'll notice on line 29, like I had to pull the URL out of the context and construct admin users, whatever.
And this is going directly to the net. So we have the same thing in Auth0. Like we have an Auth0 admin API that you can do
Right.
any of the stuff that you could do in the dashboard
Right.
anywhere else from that API. This is kind of the same thing for Netlify. So you're just literally telling Netlify, go and update this user. And then, like, I don't even know if you've known this, from then on, those tokens that get included will include that app metadata in those roles, which I guess,
Yes.
yeah, okay.
That's how I dynamically like show and hide stuff in the UI based on the roles metadata in the user.
Okay, cool.
So
Um,
there was a lot of gotchas. This was like the hardest piece for me mentally to understand because first of all, I had a major tripping point. None of this was working in dev. And I was like, where is my Netlify
yeah,
identity URL? How do I go and change anything? And after speaking with Jason Langsdorff, he goes, oh, yeah, this isn't supported in Netlify dev.
yeah.
So Netlify Identity only runs or is only provides context when you're in production, when
Okay.
you've deployed to Netlify.
So that helps me because at some point I remember you saying that it didn't work in dev. And I think at one point
Yeah.
you just said like identity didn't work, but it's specifically that context information that you needed on that function or inside of the context object wasn't what you
It's
needed.
not.
So you had to
Yeah,
deploy
it
it for that.
has to be run through a Netlify domain in order to get the context added.
Yep. Databricks says there's always a price to magic. True. That said,
Yeah.
Netlify magic is quite awesome. I agree. Did you see James's question? Sorry, this has been a little bit. Are you going to add ACH plus CC or just keeping CC? Is CC credit card and what is ACH?
I think ACH is like a bank transfer, like a.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
not sure if Stripe checkout supports that. If it does, I'll add it in.
Yeah. I assume if it's an enable thing, yeah, you might do that. Otherwise,
Yeah.
I don't know how you would. Um, so I've got a
Cool. Okay.
question.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Are you saying he was confirming it's a bank transfer?
Yeah.
Okay. Um, I've got a question um about the timing of all this. So you get switched over, you get redirected over to Stripe. You make the process, you make the purchase, you complete that, and what happens are two different things. It redirects the user back to your page. At the same
Hmm.
time, it calls this callback for your serverless
Hmm.
function where you update the user's metadata to include that role. But the user probably gets back here before that metadata is actually updated. Does that happen or
Good
do you
point.
know?
Good point.
Because I'm wondering, like, when you get back to this thanks screen, how do you know that that user has actually purchased, has actually made the, actually has that role? And it may be, I don't know, but like inside of Stripe, they might call your webhook before returning. Like that might be part of the process. So it might just be done. I'm not sure.
So I found out something interesting, and I'm not 100% on this, but based on my experience, I wasn't awaiting calls inside of the payment webhook, and I found out that when I wasn't awaiting calls, just like you said, the user gets redirected and has no permissions.
Okay.
When I started awaiting my asynchronous calls in the payment webhook, everything was working. So logically, that made me think Stripe is actually calling it before calling
Sending
the
back.
redirect.
Okay. That makes sense.
And you have to like await your asynchronous calls in that webhook in order for all that to be done
Yep.
before Stripe redirects.
Yeah. Otherwise, your serverless function will keep working. It will return to Stripe saying that it's done while it's actually still doing stuff asynchronously. Cool. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Is
I
the stream still running? I feel like it's frozen.
still running on my end. I see it. Let us know in the chat. Are we still going? Do we look just as beautiful as ever?
Oh, refresh handled it. There you go.
Yeah. A couple people are saying we're good. James Perkins also asked, Well, he also mentioned come to me to talk about adding plaid. What is plaid?
Yeah, I've never heard of that.
Okay. And he said, which does the auth stuff around ACH. Interesting. Okay. Yeah, that
Uh,
stuff is well beyond me. By the way, James Perkins and we haven't come up with a date yet. I think I need to respond, but we are coming up with a stream on Next.js. So I did some Next.js stuff yesterday of just poking around, asking questions. It probably would have been a much better format for me had I had someone live that could like really like verbally answer questions, although James was super helpful as well as other ones. So keep an eye out for me and James Perkins to get together and talk about Next.js stuff. And he's definitely one of the people that I want to learn from because I already bought his course, which is coming out in September. So I prepaid for that and looking forward to that content. Narrative ACH, apparently I didn't know this, but like payments via bank transfer, like James Perkins said. I'm sure you saw that. So what does like are you doing when you get redirected, when the user gets redirected back to this thanks page, is there any actual validation on that thanks page that the user has the role? Are you doing any validation, or is this just like it's a regular page? It just says thanks.
yeah, just a regular page says thanks.
Okay. And it doesn't.
What I need to do, like I haven't really added a bunch of error handling inside of webhooks, inside of fetch requests to make sure like everything's going through properly.
Okay. So yeah, so this thing is literally just like kind of a static page. But
Yep.
by the time you get redirected here, because of the timing stuff that we just talked about, I should now, well, maybe I should now see that I already am a pro. Do you have any like filtering of this button if you're pro, or you just haven't added that yet?
Yeah, so here's what's going on, and I can show you under the hood. You don't actually have permissions yet because you have a stale JWT. And this is what I'm working on right now. You can actually pop into local storage for this website,
Yeah.
and you'll see that the Netlify uses this thing called go true under the hood for identity,
It's in
and
local storage.
it's in local storage.
Do they do it in cookies too? Because one of the tutorials I saw if you use a third party was using cookies. Now I'm curious. Yeah, it
I
does. The
think by
NFJWT.
Murphy.
Anybody
Oh,
want to see what my
interesting.
JWT looks like?
JWT.io.
Yeah. Created by Auth0. Shout out to Auth0. If you haven't checked out the Auth0 channel on Twitch, say this all the time. You should, because I'm on there. And then also lots of other members of the super cool team that we have. So in this JWT, yeah, in the metadata, I don't have any roles in here. And then you said also is stored in local storage.
Yeah, it's also stored in local
The
storage.
gotrue.user. So like with Auth0, we don't recommend, like I'm not complaining, I'm just thinking about like the differences. We don't recommend storing JWTs in local storage because of cross-site scripting. The implication of that means that every time the application loads, you have to get a new JWT. So how do you combat like the outdated JWT here?
I don't know yet.
Okay.
So like I'll have to do something on thanks where I wipe it and get a new one, but I don't know how. So
Okay.
we were talking about all the different technologies I use and how I liked some and how I didn't like others. Netlify Identity kind of falls on my like I don't like this list. Documentation is incredibly sparse, and there are situations in Netlify Identity that really stink. Like, for instance, the user sign up. Um, Netlify Identity has like event callbacks for login and log out and things like that.
Yeah.
But what they don't have is an on sign up event handler, meaning
Like where they can call your own serverless function so you could do something with the user if you needed to.
well, it's not a serverless function callback. It's actually local in your app. So like I'm thinking of using stuff like this for like redirects.
Okay.
If you're trying to reach a protected route, I need to make sure you're logged in or not. Or once you log in, I want to automatically redirect you to the home page. Or if you're already logged in, I want to just pass you through to wherever it is you're going. So I get into this situation where I have to actually just set a flag in local storage to understand if this is a sign up or this is an existing user.
So interesting thing here. I was just talking to JC. I don't know that JC is in here or not. JC was having a similar struggle um with Auth0, or he was trying to figure out how. And one of the things that I suggested, which it sounds like, do you have a hook? Like, can you give Netlify a serverless function to call when a user signs up?
Nope.
Okay. So here's a couple of comparisons. Inside of Auth0 in our dashboard, you have the ability to write rules, and you can basically intercept the login process. After the login or register happens, and then you can check which happened, you can do certain things, like by default
Nice.
give people a certain app, like a certain thing on the app data, whatever, like you can add whatever
Yep.
sort of information you want. And what I suggested to him was, when a user signs up inside of that rule in Auth0, downside is you can't check like a rule into source code, so that kind of sucks. But like inside of this rule, if it was a sign up, then you could attach a property that says hasn't done X, hasn't completely filled out profile, or whatever variable like you want to have. And then in the front end, you could check that. And based on that, you could redirect them to like a complete your profile page.
Yeah.
Here, it sounds
It's
like you don't have the ability to attach that metadata to know. Okay.
no. And even like on sign up, you can't provide just a redirect URL. Like think about Stripe. After they get done doing their thing, you have an option to say on success and on
Where do
cancel,
you
go
want
to
to
these
go?
pages.
Yeah.
I have to I have to use the login event because a sign up fires a login uh, to redirect home after a sign up. The problem is now my login handler always redirects to home, and that's not what you want necessarily, right? Because there's a login event every
Hmm.
time the website is loaded for the first time. Netlify Identity comes up, it initializes, and it fires a login event if there's an existing JWT.
Okay.
So this is kind of a faulty system, if you ask me, because now I'm having to set like local storage items in
To
order
keep
to
track of.
understand, is there an existing JWT? Did the user just log in and make a new JWT? Is this a sign up? Do I pass them through to this page? Do I redirect them home? Do I redirect them to the account page? What do I do?
Okay. So these are interesting details. Are you sure? Like, I thought there was the ability to register callback functions, like your serverless functions, in the login process. Like after a user logins, you don't have the ability to call a serverless function,
I
or have
do. So
Netlify do it.
you have to set it up through Netlify Identity, but a serverless function is not going to get me like a client side redirect. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I guess I was just thinking about what I was suggesting to JC. Like you could attach that metadata property to the user and then check that in the front end and then redirect based on that. But his use case is a little bit different, I think.
I see what you mean. Instead of relying on local storage, put it in just some random app metadata field that can
On
handle the situation on the user.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
where,
it's a good point.
so inside of your code, do you get access to, like inside of the code, where do you get access to the user object coming from Netlify Identity? And while you think about that, a couple of, well, I guess if you can answer that, and then a
Yeah,
couple of
yeah, yeah.
questions from James Perkins in here.
So it'll be a source stores user, I think. Source.
Is there a built-in data store with Svelte? Like it's not like a separate Redux package or something?
Yeah, it is store
Okay.
user. No, it's not user. Where the heck did I put this?
Like a auth, maybe? I don't know.
It's in. Oh, it's in source utils identity.
Source utils.
Yeah. So James is saying, could you not check token and then direct to the correct URL?
If
That's the content that requires the access token, else show login.
damn it, Twitch, don't ruin my code. Damn it,
Yeah. So
Twitch.
what I don't want to do is conditionally render an entire login page. What I'd like to do is actually redirect. But I see what you're saying, right? You can call and navigate and get there. So the hackiness I wrote starts on line 15.
There's where the hackiness is. If so, you get a returning user thing from local storage. If it's, and this is on a login, and you say if it's
So
false, if returning user is
like
false.
one thing to understand is login fires if there's an existing JWT in your cookies or local storage and the user visits the site again, login fires when they visit that page. If they
Before
actually
anything
like
else happens.
correct, yeah, like when Netlify Identity initializes.
Okay.
It also fires when a user actually logs in. They go from an unauthenticated state to an authenticated state.
Mm-hmm.
And the login event fires on sign up because on sign up they receive a JWT token, it gets stored, and login fires. So these are three distinct situations that I need to handle differently. And right now I'm only handling one, the sign up situation.
And what do you need to do when a user signs up? Like what's special about that?
On sign up, I need to, this is what's handled on line 15 to 20. On sign up, I need to redirect them home. It's like, congratulations, you signed up. Otherwise, it just kind of sits on this page with a modal, like sits on the account page with a modal that says, congrats, you signed up, you know?
Okay.
Because that's part of the Netlify Identity widget. I need to actually get them off of that page and back to home.
Gotcha. Or like you kind of mentioned earlier, like straight to a dashboard, which I don't like, instead of a
Straight to it.
homepage
Either way.
if it was a different
Yeah.
type of application. So I get what you're saying. So in this event, you get a login, but you don't have any way to differentiate between login and sign up.
Yeah. Or like you were already logged in versus like you just logged in.
And what would you do differently there? Like if you're already logged in versus you chose to log in, what would you do differently?
Yeah. So the way the identity widget works is that on a successful sign up or login, the widget stays open and there's like a modal that says like you
You're
are now
logged
logged
in.
in
Yeah, I thought that was weird.
and it stays there. So
Why?
you
That's weird to me.
you you have to handle this redirect in one of these event handlers rather than giving it a callback URL to say just go here when you're done.
Yeah. Okay.
So biggest pain point with Netlify identity is right there.
Okay. Interesting. Databrecht, who had also commented earlier, it would have been funnier at the time, but that he was working on HTTP only cookie in memory refresh access tokens while we were talking about it. It sounds like fun stuff. So hopefully you said it's getting, or like it can get super complicated. So hopefully it's going okay. And then you said something I wonder while hearing that. Do you use FaunaDB's ABAC? I assume that's, I don't know what A is, but based
Something access control.
Yeah. Or do you write security rules as in which user can access which data yourself in your backend? It seems to be the latter. It's actually a good attribute based access control. I'm thinking you're not doing any configuration in Fauna. Are you checking like when someone, let's actually see. This is
Yeah,
where we put you on blast in front of everyone and
yeah.
go through your code and see what you're doing.
The
Let's look in
GraphQL
functions.
query. So if you go to source GraphQL queries, the GraphQL query executes that says get workout by user.
Was this not under functions? What did you say? Oh, source GraphQL.
Oh yeah. This will be functions. You're right. It'll be in the functions folder.
Oh, I just moved over here.
Yeah.
So these are the fine. What's the what call do you make in functions to save? Do you call the
Yeah, in
fauna? You call the
functions,
fauna?
I call GraphQL from my serverless function.
Right, but like from the front end, you call your serverless function, which is this file fauna here,
Correct. Yeah, which
and
is a pass through.
then you're just passing a query, a GraphQL query. But do you have any way of checking to make sure that, well, you don't have any way to update an existing record right now, right? Like you can't update a previous, like if I record a workout, there's no way for me to then update that workout later on.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. So you
It
don't really
just
have
so
to
this
do any. What I was wondering is if somebody sent an update request, are you making sure that the person sending the update request matches the ID of the user in the update request, but you don't have to do that.
Yeah, so like lines 5 and 6 are where I'm going to do some validation. Um, I do receive a user in this call, and I
Yep.
can make sure that the user who's asking for something matches the email associated with that user.
The Where would that email come from?
It comes through in the GraphQL query.
Okay. Gotcha. Sweet. That's cool. And
C
I
Films, C Films is asking, how is GraphQL? Really like it, especially love it when I don't have to write resolvers.
yeah.
So from the client side, I think GraphQL is really, really great.
So that's one of the things I don't know too is like you're sending queries from the front end and it looks like you had in source and GraphQL. I don't know how this works when you use something like Apollo on the front end or whatever. Like you've defined your queries here
Hmm.
and you can pass variables to these. If you use Apollo, do you have to define these queries or does Apollo give you an API that will generate the query, the actual GraphQL query for you? Do you know? Are you using Apollo?
No, I'm actually just using raw fetch
That's
with
what that's
GraphQL.
what I
You don't
thought.
you
Okay.
don't have to use Apollo. Yeah. But
Wh-
even if you did use Apollo, you'd have to write the same stuff.
Do you really?
Hmm.
Okay. I didn't know. I would have thought they would like Apollo would give you an API that you could work with to not have to write raw GraphQL queries. But I don't.
No, that's the power of GraphQL. So you're probably familiar with Grok, right? Because you use Sanity.
Well, I use GraphQL with, but I know of Grok. Yeah.
Okay, okay. It's the same thing. It's a query language for an API endpoint, right? So this is where GraphQL gets its power because instead of just hitting an endpoint, you're passing this thing that describes exactly what you want back.
But I'm still
Whereas
thinking
if you're using like REST, right, the endpoint in and of itself dictates the data
what you
you get
get.
back.
Yeah. Yeah. I know how that works. The only thing I just figured it would be easier, although maybe not. Instead of like constructing this string, it would be easier to call a function that Apollo can give you and you pass it the array of fields that you want and it translates it to the string. But maybe, yeah, maybe I'm overthinking that. And it's just like
Yeah.
you still have the query.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Like you don't want to write out all this text. You just want to say, give me X, Y, and Z back instead.
Maybe, but it also like as I was saying that, it's like I have to put the same amount of information in whatever call there is for it to be translated to
Yep.
that. So it may not be helpful at all anyway.
Yep.
Um Databrect is saying, now I'm confused. I thought they were called from the functions.
So
Now it seems they're called from the front end. Can't everyone put a different email in there? Just wondering. I assuming it's also a work in product progress. So
yeah, data.
yeah.
This is super work in progress still. I've been working on it for maybe just about a month now, spending an hour or two a night on this. Um, but yeah, we make calls from I think all the calls are routed through the backend.
Well, okay. I
Yeah,
think he's got a
all the calls are routed through the backend. I just define some of my queries and mutations in the backend and some of my queries and mutations in the front end because of the way Netlify deploys functions.
I'm wondering if he might be onto something though. So inside of functions in Fauna, you are getting the user off of the client context. So if a user's not logged in and they call this function, like if I send this without an access token from Postman, it will blow up. Well, does it?
Well, I'm not doing anything yet. That's a to do, right? I need to
Okay.
validate like there is a user.
Okay. So right now you're getting the user, but you're not using it. So yeah, right now
Hmm.
this is just a pass through. So from the front end, I could send you whatever GraphQL I wanted.
Yeah.
And okay. So your next step is then to take, well, like, and this is what I did in the Jamstack tutorial is I generated all those queries on the server based on the information that came in from the user. So that way That way the user sends me what they want to update. And then based on that, I can make sure that like that user is the user who's logged in. There is a user that
Yeah.
actually is logged in. And then I could determine what goes on from there.
Mm.
So the only thing you would just need some way to make sure that the thing that they're posting matches the actual logged in, that the user is logged in and the information in the query that they're sending matches the information about the user. And that
Yeah,
would be
exactly.
the tricky part, because at that point you'd have to grab that GraphQL, the string, and like parse out email address and stuff.
Correct. So what's the alternative then?
Have the user send you whatever information they want to update to your serverless function, and your serverless function does validation and then generates the GraphQL query that then goes over to Fauna. Because otherwise, like you're like if you extract your user from the context, you can check to see whether or not the user's logged in, but you can't check to see, unless you do some manual parsing, to compare the email address of the user you get in the context with the email address or user ID or whatever it is of the thing coming in the GraphQL query. Because like even if you check logged in, I could log in and then I could grab my access token, I could take it to Postman and I could send a request, and then in the GraphQL I could use your email address and then I
Yep.
could update your stuff, or I
Yep.
could
Yep.
add
Yep.
a
I see what
add a
you're saying.
record to your stuff.
Yeah.
Um,
But no, I don't think you could. The context then at that point would not be populated.
it
Maybe
would
it would
if
be
I
if you put the bearer token in there.
yeah, yep, yeah. I could take it. I could take it and I could throw it in Postman if that's how, if that's one of the ways that Netlify is checking it.
I'm trying to read Databreck's
Mm-hmm.
comments here. He says he wanted to provide some interesting insights. Calling everything from serverless functions and not using access control is fine. The disadvantage is that you would require a serverless function for each call. Given that they're hosted in one region by default, you would lose multi-region advantage of Fauna. Yeah, but I can't make these calls from the front end because don't I need that would expose my secret key from Fauna?
So this is one of the things that I don't fully follow, but I think I know enough to help the conversation. So Brian Robinson wrote an article about integrating Auth0 and and Fauna, and I think got into this stuff. With Fauna, you can have users and basically like in memory in your application get a token for that user to then send along with a request directly to Fauna. So instead of using a private API key in your serverless function in the front end, and I don't know what the process is exactly, but you can basically like in your real time stuff get an access token for a user that's specifically then to be used with Fauna. But
Huh.
I
Okay,
don't know
so
what the flow is to get that access token and then also not save it somewhere. Like I think it would have to be in memory, unless I guess you could save that in local storage also. Now you
yeah, I
use
think what this is
keys.
coming down to is I've secured the front end by uh checking users logged in state everywhere. What I have yet to do is secure the back end.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think
Because I think at this point as well, anybody can hit my payment serverless function and like act as if they paid. I
so
don't verify
if
that it comes from Stripe as of yet. I've got it to do that as well.
okay.
Stripe sends a header in the webhook that you can verify
Okay.
when the function runs.
So that's relatively simple then. I wonder, can that be hacked though? Can I send that in Postman?
I don't think so. You have to call the Stripe library in the
So
serverless function to validate the header. So I think
that they
it's
take care
full
of.
circle
Okay.
on Stripe's end.
Okay. Uh, Tech Gadget said he's going to get a free Murph account.
I'm happy to give everybody on stream free Murph accounts, by the way.
You heard it from the man himself.
Yep.
Databricks, I don't feel distracted at all. This is I really enjoyed this conversation. I think this is where, Brad, I imagine you started off and you thought, hey, this is going to be a really simple app. I'm just tracking like times, And you get
Yeah.
into like identity and payments and callback functions and serverless, and there's like it's a bunch of shit that like is important that you have to figure out and know.
Like the past 2 weeks of programming have been the hardest that I've ever done. And it's been like the smallest amount of code I've had to write, but to get my mind around how to do all this,
Yeah.
like even the payment flow. Think about this. Stripe's webhook has absolutely zero context of who the Netlify user is.
Yep.
I hit that serverless function. I was like, so how do I know who to update?
Yep.
And I had to make a separate database entry just to map like a Netlify user's ID with their email because Stripe knows the email because I
Just
passed it through from the front end and it said a purchase was made and this customer had this
so
email. So
that's
then
how
I
you
can
did. Okay.
look up in Fauna the ID from the email.
That's why you had the email.
Da, 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 da. Yeah,
Um,
that was
is that
difficult.
what did Jason Langsdorff do in his? Because I know he had a table, but he didn't have email. He had user ID to Stripe user ID.
Stripe ID. So I'm using a one-time payment, right? I
Hmm.
the Stripe customer I don't care about. As long as this person's paid, I will mark them as paid, and that's it.
Right.
Jason Langsdorff is using a subscription, so you have to have a notion of who that person is inside of Stripe so that they can renew their subscription. So he had to create a Stripe customer. So anytime a user signed up for his thing, he had to create a Stripe customer and a Netlify identity user and link them together in a Fauna database so that
Yeah,
later
he created the Stripe
that
customer by
user,
default.
yeah,
Okay, gotcha. And then he
because
could
because they have
associate.
to manage their subscription.
Yeah. Okay. Gotcha. Um, Databricks. That's why I'm writing the skeletons or our user struggles with this. It's complex. Yeah, that'd be great. I remember Brian explaining to me some of the stuff that was going on where I think he did like in the middle of the authentication process in Auth0, he would use rules to do a custom call from there to Fauna to then also get that person's Fauna access token. And then that would be included in the ID token that would be used in the front end and then could be sent directly to Fauna. That way you're not including, like, as long as this stuff is in memory, it's okay. Oh, Databricks, you helped Brian with that. Cool. And again, like I'm kind of following the stuff, but also I'm kind of like, man, that's a lot of stuff. That's just like kind of challenging for me to put together. So as you come
Yeah.
up with release content, like I want to see that. I'm really curious. I talked to Brian several times and I read his article and like I have the high level, but it's tricky stuff.
Yeah, and I wish this was easier for folks because like while I do have the programming knowledge to make this happen, stitching all these pieces together is like infinitely complex if you're not using, let's say, like a Shopify front end that you're just theming. You know what I mean?
Yep. And you can, so this is a question I have too. You can use Shopify. Like if I wanted to sell stuff on my site, I could use Shopify and not use their web page, right? Like I could do a redirect thing or like a pop-up thing in my own site.
You could, like, they go headless. They have an
Okay.
API and there's a
That's what I was wondering.
Gatsby source Shopify,
Sweet.
but Gatsby source Shopify is missing a lot of stuff. I've built a store off of that before and
Hmm.
it's just not up to date with everything Shopify can do.
Okay. RPan is saying that plugin exists as well.
Yeah. So you could just leverage the raw API yourself. I had to actually combine in Gatsby Node. It got crazy. I had to combine the source Shopify with raw API calls to Shopify to stitch together all the data that I needed.
Okay. Interesting. And so you think, and like for this use case where you're just doing the one-time payment, you update that property on the user, going with Stripe, everything else that you've seen with potentially Shopify and other stuff, you still like that's the way you think is the easiest to go at this point?
It's the freest. Like
Oh,
I
do you
don't
have
have
to
to pay for
pay?
Shopify.
You have to pay for Shopify? There's no free tier?
Yeah. After a certain point, I think you have to pay for Shopify.
Okay. I'm going in like total relax mode, by the way. I'm gonna recline a little bit. I don't know why some of the light like changes. Do you see that?
Yeah. Is it your camera's exposure?
Yeah, I guess it's not automatic. It's weird. I still don't know how to set up like the best consistent settings for my webcam, but I can turn
You
this.
need. You got an Elgato light?
Yeah.
It gets so yeah, they get so bright. Like I have mine down on like 10%, 5%.
I just put it down to 3 actually. But it's better
Yeah.
like if I'm actually up here, like
Yeah.
that looks good. So I don't maybe I'm not allowed to lay down, so Databract, things like where to store tokens, how to refresh tokens. Supertokens.io, never heard of that, is a great resource. A secure implementation with both a backend and front end lib that implements all that by inserting a few calls from their lib. Mine are on 70%. Oh, the light's weird. Yeah, that is. Else my green screen is not. Yeah, the green screen is tough. You have to put a lot of light on a green screen for that to work well. I've got my green screen up here that I could like pull down. I think it's kind of cool. I do that when I'm taking my
Nice.
my images that I do on my YouTube thumbnails. Like I'll pull it down,
Oh yeah.
I'll open up photo booth or whatever and like take like 50 pictures until I find one I like. And
Nice.
then Canva has a background remover. If you've ever used Canva in the browser to do thumbnails or anything, they have a background remover, and so that's what I use to get the background out of those images. Tech gadget, no relaxation for James. Yeah, that really sucks. Like my biggest issue is light, right? I mean, I guess that's a pretty good life if my biggest issue right now is light in while I'm reclining.
I actually use this remove.bg. Some dev made it a while back.
Do
Threw
you
it
pay
on
for
Twitter. It should be free, right? At least it was back when I found it.
When's the last time you used it? Because I've looked at that, and there's like either a tiny threshold or it like automatically jumps to a paid threshold.
Oh yeah, for sure. This is the thing now. 1 credit.
Yeah, right.
Wow.
So one of the
It
things
was free when that guy first made it.
yeah, Tech Gadget saying that there is a free plan, but it looks tiny. That's what I had seen. One of the things I have done though is there's a plugin in Figma that you can give Figma your API key for remove BG, and I thought was only 1 credit, but I think it's like somehow it lets me do more. So I've done some in Figma as well.
Nice.
I don't remember exactly what I did, but yeah, where's the pricing on this? Refer friends and earn credits. Yeah, there's that. Yeah, 40 credits a
Crazy.
month
Yeah,
is I don't know. It just seems, or like 10
$9.
credits is $9.
Yeah.
That seems like, I don't know. Anyway, Canva. And I can't
Canva.
remember if that's a paid feature in Canva or not. My wife has paid Canva for work and I use it. Shh, don't tell people. All right, I feel like this has been a really easy, fun stream. Like I've enjoyed the technical side of this a lot. I love talking about all this stuff. But we've been on for 20 minutes. Do you want to kind of like, I don't know, do you want to give like maybe a wrap up of your experience so far and then like what you have to come and when people can maybe expect like to be able to send a real payment to Stripe and not the test one and have that ready to go?
Yeah, so I guess like just talking about what's left in Murph, I want to add TypeScript support. I want to add Jest
Sweet.
testing, get 100% coverage because this
That's
is going to be
my backlog.
a real app.
Yeah.
Yeah, now luckily those two things are things that I know now. So like I don't have an issue implementing them. But I because this is going out to an app store, I want this to be really solid.
Right.
The Google App Store supports PWAs. This is a PWA. I expect people to use this from their phone. So it's all been designed for mobile.
So what about, so you can submit it to the store in Google Play, and then also people can just use this as a PWA in iOS? Like you wouldn't go through the store?
First of all, iOS is probably going to be a no-go. It all depends on my pricing. Well, iOS might be a no-go in general. Number one, they're not PWA friendly. Number
Are they
two,
not? Are you sure? Are you sure about
the
that?
App Store. The App Store.
Correct. Yeah. So I could still just take this thing, go to the website, save as a PWA on the home screen, and then go from there.
I believe so.
And it works
but
basically the same.
It also comes down to like my payment model. I don't know if I want people to like get the timer for free with no login, and then they have to like pay me $1 inside of the app to get pro features, or if this is going to be like just give me $1 and you get the app.
Oh,
We'll
gotcha.
see.
Well, so there's an interesting article or like headline I looked at earlier is iOS just kicked off shit out of the App Store. They just kicked an app out of the store.
Epic, Fortnite,
Fortnite, because Fortnite was doing its own payment stuff
in-app
and
purchases. Yeah,
bypassing the
yeah,
Apple IAP, which is where they make a lot of their money, and
yeah.
Apple kicked them out. So you wouldn't be able to have the same sort of payment structure where somebody could go in and go through your external stripes. You'd have to have some differentiation, like to have
Correct.
it be on the iOS store or the App Store.
So I don't want this to get that big. I'm gonna be totally honest. So at this
Yeah,
point, like I'm either just gonna release on Microsoft App Store and Google Play Store and PWA, like just online.
yeah,
I think that's gonna be the way that I'm gonna go. I just need to understand my payment model. Is it pay
yep,
up front or give them the timer for free and let them track workouts after they pay $1?
yeah. Does Google have any issue if you do a PWA and you do your own payment stuff?
I don't think they care.
Interesting. I'm,
But
I,
the notion is that Android users don't pay for anything. So
yeah, yeah, that's fair. That's cool though. One of the reasons I would like to, well, I don't want to deal with the Apple Store to be honest, but I've always had this in the
yeah,
back of my mind of like, I'd be really interested to like learn more about React Native, but I don't want to do the Apple Store. Like it's such a bitch.
yeah.
I've done it
Like I
before
thought
and
about
it's
that.
terrible
I picked all these like new technologies, which definitely made getting this project up and running longer than it needed to
in a
be.
good way though.
But
Yeah,
yeah, like I now have a ton of new tools under my belt. But at the end of the day, I'm like, should I have learned React Native instead if this was going to be like a mobile kind of application, you know?
well, I'm gonna have that same question for the thing that I've kind of mentioned to you about wanting to work on together. Like it
Yeah,
makes the most sense as a mobile app, but
sure.
like a PWA, I think would still like there's nothing that I want to do that is specifically specific to Android or iOS. So a
Yeah.
PWA would still work. It's just I guess like a lot of it's like the discoverability. Like not many people know that you can take a website and grab the PWA on iOS. And I imagine a lot of people don't know that you can do that on Google too, Android
Yeah, but Google, you can actually take that PWA
to the
and put it on
store.
the App
Yeah,
Store. That's the
sure.
difference, right?
Yeah,
And then the icon on your home screen is just it does the exact same thing. It just goes to the website.
right. Yep. Yeah, that's fair. Um, by the way, one last thing. I've been super happy with the Learn Build Teach Discord, which Brad is a moderator in, and a few people that are already in the chat are in the Discord. It's just been great. I've really enjoyed like seeing that grow and seeing how many conversations take place without even me being a part of it. Like I think that's cool for like to have helped connect people in a way that like they're able to help ask questions, answer questions, that sort of stuff. So, link to the Discord in the chat if you're interested in joining what I consider to be a pretty cool and open and welcoming community. So, if you're interested in doing that, definitely check it out. Also, I'm gonna throw a link in here to the Auth0 Twitch. I try to do this at least once or twice during my streams because I'm on work time. Come hang out on the Auth0 channel. Follow that one. I will be on there. I've got some amazing teammates that do cool stuff on there as well. We also have every other week, we have what are called avocado labs, which are like basically meetup talks. And we bring on some pretty cool speakers. So I think that would be worth checking out as well. Brad, any last thing you want to share? Like I can grab like your Twitter or anything like that you want to throw in here for people.
Yeah, for sure. My Twitter. I'm also really trying to grow my Twitch channel. So I'm very
Sweet.
active on Twitter, and I just hit affiliate on Twitch. I stream most nights around 10 p.m. Central Time, and typically a little bit on the weekends around midday.
Yeah.
I've been building this Murph app completely live on Twitch. So if you ever want to see me struggle with this stuff or have suggestions or data, if you want to come in and teach me how to use this fauna stuff that you're talking about, let's do it.
It might get intense, but yeah, I think
Yeah.
that'd be pretty cool. And I try to like I've checked in to several of yours, just like stop by and kind of check out the progress. The couple of people I think are paying at the beginning of the stream. has been in probably like everyone and
Yeah.
probably Nick and a few others.
Yep.
And they're like, yeah,
Tech has
we've gotten
been
to
joining.
see, yeah. And they're like, yeah, we've gotten to see this thing evolve from the beginning. That's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Sweet. Well, that's all I got. Brad, thanks again, as always, for coming to hang out, man. It's fun talking to you. It's fun learning about the technologies you use, and look forward to the content that comes along with it after a official release at some point soon.
For sure, man. Thanks for having me on, James.